Hello and welcome to Dateline New Haven on WNHH-FM, New Haven's home for community radio. I'm Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. There is nothing more community than the gentleman and the project we're going to be featuring on today's show. Steve Driffin has been in New Haven forever, right? Is that about it?
Yeah, forever's a good time.
Yeah. I'm doing both, working with kids, youth worker for decades, currently with Concat, and writing, directing plays that have a real community focus. Wait until you hear about the new play he has going. It's going to be on Saturday, August 2nd, Sunday, August 3rd at the Q House as part of their 100th anniversary. It's a play about the original Freddie Fixer.
Yes.
There actually are two, right? There's Ed Grant and his friend, Dr. Fred Smith.
Right, Ed Grant.
Who are the inspirations for the Freddie Fixer Parade, which is not just a parade, it was one of the leading Black community parades that draws people from many states for decades, for half a century. But it was started by two gentlemen, one of whom was Dr. Fred Smith, where he got the name Freddie Fixer. And he was a leader in the Dixwell community, a physician, a black physician, a police commissioner, just kind of made things happen. And he and Ed Grant came with this up idea in 1962 during urban renewal and everything, when everyone was talking about buildings and bulldozers. They were talking about cleaning up the street and feeling proud about it and doing community. Exactly. Because Freddie Fixer was this mythical character with a top hat, I believe, who was with a broom and going up and down the street.
I haven't seen
cleaning.
that.
That was the original image and the original idea. But Steve has gone deep. He has teamed up with Fred Smith's son to write a play about the story of Dr. Fred Smith called Be Your Own Hero.
Absolutely. And
it's got a little time travel warp to it, right?
It does.
So, Steve, tell us about the play. Don't give us away everything because we all want to go see it. But tell me a little bit about the play.
Yeah. It's really about Fred Smith going back in time to make sure he stays on the right path so he can do what he has to do in the future.
So it starts in 1960 when he's about to do the parade, or when does it start?
It starts, we could assume it starts around the time he just comes in and then he just says, hey, this is my job. And well, not my job. I'm coming back to, he challenges the audience. You know, I think the first thing he says is, you ever imagine anybody tell you, what would you tell your younger self? And it starts from
Boy, I mean, you and I are around the same age, Steve. Do we do that a lot, don't we?
Right, but we could do
it
again.
And sometimes I think maybe nothing would have changed because who you are. Like, you look back, I'm not talking different. You're telling a different story, which is that, like, all this important work he did and what he learned at the end of the road. I often think about, I wish I could go back in time and not mess up all the times I messed up and acted the way I did. But then I think you kind of are who you are.
And if you didn't, you wouldn't be who you are.
Yeah.
Right. It would alter the future.
But this sounds a little different to me. This sounds to me as a way of telling the story of Fred Smith.
Absolutely.
And about being a hero in the community.
Really, it's not really about being your own. Yes, it is about being your own hero. But what primarily it's yes, in a nutshell, it's really about going against the obstacles. It's going against how life can, kind of put up these speed bumps and how you have to persevere. And he's telling his younger self, like, just go through it, you'll be okay. And though his younger self, a little more hot-headed, a little more like, I don't see it, doesn't really believe it. As a matter of fact,
that rings a bell, doesn't it?
Exactly, as we all were when we were young. But this story took an interesting, how it all came to be. The story was presented, the idea was presented like over a year ago. And I was asked, hey, would you write this? And at the time
Who asked you that?
Oh man, I think it was like people from the committee, I guess the Dixwell.
Well, Dixwell Q House, the community center, is having its 100th anniversary.
Right.
So there's no.
The first person I spoke with was Malcolm Welfare.
Malcolm Welfare. So Dixwell is a real symbol of that community house. Yeah. So generations grew up there. It went in decline. They brought it back bigger than ever.
Yeah.
Going to the roots of what Dixwell was and the best of what it can be.
Correct.
Revived, which you've been a part of so many things in the community like that. So it's a great idea that's part of that. Daniel Hunt writes, Steve D, a phenomenal leader, all caps, the phenomenal part. He has a heart for youth and community 100. Thanks for listening, Daniel, and writing in. So a year ago, Malcolm Welfare, part of the Q House, said to you, can you put a play about Dr. Fred Smith, was it?
Yeah, they asked me, would you be interested in doing it? And at the time, I said no. I mean, because I was working on other projects, and I said, I don't have the time. And months passed, and some projects didn't come to fruition. So then I think I was approached again. I think Jackie Downing.
Hmm.
So then Jackie approached me, and just so happened things were kind of like, okay, Steve,
Is
you got
she
a little
involved
bit
with
of.
the Q House, just community foundation?
She is no, she's involved with the Q-House. I think believe she's on the board or the
Okay.
yeah. And and so yeah, so I said, well, you know what? She said, I have a conversation with Fred Smith Jr., his son. And
And was
I
he like,
agree.
did you meet for coffee around the corner, or is Fred Smith Jr. far away?
Fred Smith Jr.'s in Portugal, not quite a little bit around the corner.
So no Starbucks.
No Starbucks.
What's he doing in
Oh
Portugal?
man, just living his life.
What does he do? Is he a doctor too?
No, he's been a couple of things. I know he's in like law school, did a professorship, some places. I think he's just retired now, just working on some books and some.
And how'd they
historical
link
pieces.
him into this?
That's a great question. I think it was just when he came. He actually came in town a couple of Freddie Fixer parades ago, and he was there. So I think that's probably where it stemmed from. That was before my knowledge of anything. And but fast forward, we met. We spoke on the phone, and it was a really good conversation. And my interest was piqued because I'm not originally from New Haven, so
Where are you
for
originally
me,
from, Steve?
I grew up in New York and in South Carolina. So my formative years, teenage years.
South Carolina is not the same as New Haven?
No,
I kind of get the sense sometimes with all the people came from South Carolina.
Right.
I
Some
kind
of
of
the
feel
roots,
like it's
the
like
roots,
Hamden, New
right?
Haven, like there's a bleeding
Right.
line. What brought you up here?
Actually, after college, I was supposed to go back to New York and teach, and the job didn't come through. My aunt was here. She's like, "Hey, come to New Haven."
Was that a South Carolina link? Was she family from the South
Well, she
Carolina?
was here in Connecticut,
Uh-huh.
and so I was gonna go after I graduated from college down there. I was gonna go back home, and she was like, "Well, don't you come to Connecticut?" And I'm like, "Connecticut? What's in Connecticut?" And so I came to Connecticut, something new, and that's where it all started. So that was my launch into writing plays in Connecticut.
We talked about Yo Street. Was that
Oh
your first
man,
play in the early 90s?
yes,
That was a community play about people dreaming what their street could be in New Haven, right?
that was definitely my first stab at theatrical writing, playwriting, and I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I wanted to tell a story, so I was interested in filmmaking, and I wanted to be a filmmaker. But at that time, you needed millions and millions of dollars. So I'm like, okay, what's make
No,
lemon
no
out of
phone
lemon?
and
No,
one and
right?
done.
No,
Yeah.
there was that didn't exist,
Yeah.
right? So and I said, well, Steve, make plays. That's the next best thing to a movie. Somebody can see your stuff,
And we are talking to Steve Driffin, a playwright and youth worker, New Haven, lifetime, long-term guy. He has a great play he co-wrote that's coming out this weekend of August 2nd at Dixwell Q House about the life of Fred Smith, Dr. Fred Smith, one of the two main inspirations for Freddie Fixer. And he wrote that with Fred's son. So, Steve, I interrupted you. I'm sorry. So you
Yeah, no
came to New
problem.
Haven. Were you working a day job while you wanted to be a playwright because you want to tell stories, movies were too expensive.
Yeah.
What were you doing for day job? Were you already doing youth work?
Believe it or not, my first job was a head teacher at the Y. I was teaching kindergarten.
I believe
and
it.
Head Start, and I started there. And at the time, I was just in New Haven, and I lived by this place which I didn't know what it was until I moved here. It was called the Mud Hole.
Oh yeah, we know about the.
And so I saw a lot of things.
And that was
right?
the time of the mud hole when crack hit, right?
That
And
was
that's where
that
the number
time.
one crack dealing
Right.
place in town.
That was a really intense time. It was
And
an
weren't the
intense
old
time.
folks hanging out at that club there too?
Yeah, it was a lot going on. It was a lot going on. And then I was a transplant, so it was just like, and I'm like, no one really knew me. Family knew me, So it was interesting. So I wanted to tell a story, and I said, well, how can I tell a story the best way possible without wagging my finger or being on a corner on a soapbox? So I wrote this play because I remember growing up in Brooklyn as a kid. Bed-Stuy, Miss Red was on the block, and she was like the mother of the block. And she would rat everybody out if we did anything wrong. But those are days that I remembered, and when community was really community, when people were together and they looked out for each other, and businesses, small mom and pop businesses flourished. So I grew up in that time, and in that time I saw being just really dissipating and just waning away because of the epidemic, the drug epidemic and everything that came into the communities, the black communities in particular, right? And so I did a play, and I did it on the streets. So Yo Street, literally, I did it. Big ups to Bishop Brooks, Theodore Brooks
On
Sr.
Orchard Street?
Yeah, he allowed me. I closed the street off and erected a stage on the on off the his church steps. I got some of his members of the church and some people together, and we created this
I give him a
morality
lot of
play.
credit for this young man in his 20s, wasn't from town.
He
He said,
wasn't from
go
town.
for it.
Yeah, he just gave me that green light, and that's where it was. And from there, Yo Street caught on, and we got into the schools. I did it at Hill House, so it was good.
And you enlisted kids from community, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you kind of were doing kid work too, youth work too.
Yeah, that was always a part of me.
And you did a revival of that recently, Steve.
Say again?
You did a revival of this play.
No, I didn't.
I thought there was an anniversary of the play.
You know, Pete. Yes, it was an anniversary, and people were like, Steve, you should do it again.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But I was like, it would. It's like, plays are a lot of work, especially when you get more than 4 people.
So you got here by happenstance.
Yes.
Job didn't work in New York.
Right.
But you got right off the bat working with kids at the Y, right off the bat writing plays that are real grassroots focused.
Yeah.
Did both of those things continue kind of nonstop since? I mean, you worked for DCF, right? State Department of Children and Families, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I just did a lot of nonprofit work, Youth Continuum.
Okay.
Actually, I worked at the police. I've had several jobs before.
What'd you do with the police?
I was a dispatcher for quite some time.
911 center.
Yeah, just took the calls, and that was interesting. That was
And
interesting.
and Youth Continuum, what would you do there?
I was a youth worker, became a director. Yeah, and just kind of moved around.
And then you did a whole steady stream of plays, if I'm not mistaken, right? You had Butterflies, right, which was a screenplay.
Yeah, Butterflies is most recent screenplay I wrote that was won an award in New York City.
Big Apple Film Festival screenplay
Yeah.
competition.
That's
Well,
pretty good.
and what's happening with that? Is it being made into a movie?
No, not yet. I'm still pushing.
And what's it
around.
about?
It's really about it's a play that's about self-worth and growth and really just having a positive image about yourself. And I just decided to use the insect world, and particularly butterflies, because who doesn't like butterflies, right?
I like Butterflies.
Right, I like butterflies too. So I did all my research on all types of butterflies. So it's really about friendship, development.
Are the characters butterflies?
They're all butterfly. Everything is insect. There's
So
no,
is it to be an animated or people dressed up as butterflies?
Nah, in my head, it's a Pixar.
Mhm.
So anybody that
Can't beat
wants to,
that.
tell Pixar to call me. I got a good piece.
All right. And then you also had a stage play that was sold out at Long Wharf Theater and a New York off-Broadway debut in 2022, Death by a Thousand Cuts, a Requiem for Black and Brown Men. Tell me about that.
Oh yeah, that was intense. That was I would say unexpected sleeper hit. It was really about the story of black men, our struggles.
So how did you tell the story? What's the plot?
Yeah, the story was actually told by using spoken word poetry peppered with storytelling. But it just
So it's
kinda
not one
rhymed.
character, but a series of
Four men
Okay.
talking about their experiences and how their experiences weave together. They bob in and out of storytelling, and it was really powerful. Some powerful men: Rodney Moore, Shamant, Influence Little. I had some great people: Jason Hall, Stephen King. Couldn't work with better people on that one, and they just grasped, and it was a lot of healing for us too. Even doing
Tell
that
me about
process.
that. Tell me about a moment of healing.
Yeah. So many times at rehearsals, we would be talking about the subject matter, or the subject matters would hit.
Like, give me an example of a subject matter you talked about one day.
Wow. We talk about the relationships with fathers. How distant and they had been in many of our lives, and having to confront that, and then how it spilled over to many of us being fathers and our children, and how it changed the dynamics, and how we wanted to be better or different. And so, making those realizations and coming to those epiphanies were
There's
just
something
great.
very painful that hits deep when you're talking about how you felt as a kid, right? You go
Oh,
back as a kid. I talk to so many people talking
absolutely.
about the father driving away, the father not showing up.
Yes, all of that.
I wonder why that hits so deep.
Because
Guess what you need from a parent? It begins with a parent, right? That's the
does.
person who's supposed to take care of you and make you feel like you're okay, right?
Yeah, and you figure, and there's no handbook to it, right? And trauma runs deep. Trauma runs deep, and it's passed on, and people try to. There's no handbook to it, and so especially in the Black community, there's a lot that's arrayed against families, and so it's just not so cut and dry. Opportunities, or the lack of opportunities, and dreams and wishes, and
So these 4 characters in this play, are they real people or are they A fictional. They're real people.
No. They're all allegorical.
And,
They're colors
and they
actually
have stories about what happened in their lives.
that resonate with
Can you
all
think
men.
of a day when you talked about when the father thing hit deep, where something specific was in the script that brought up something specific that happened to somebody that somebody else related to?
Oh, yeah. There's a scene that's talked about where the son says he was more like a bother than for his father, and his father was just so distant from him, and just talking about that relation or lack of relation
To the other kids
to
in the
the other,
family?
yeah, and so that resonated, with us in different ways. Yeah, we talked about relationships, our relationships with women, our relationships, how with our children, with
And what
our
happened with the
coworkers,
relationships with women?
just the strained relationships. How we can be overlooked, or and sometimes really just want to be vulnerable, but then sometimes can't. And that is big, right? The vulnerability is looked at as
You think there's ever a gift when the moment comes when you can be vulnerable when you felt you couldn't, and you let go, whether it's crying or letting out something you felt you weren't supposed to talk about?
you mean me personally?
Anyone, yeah.
Of course. I mean, I've learned and taught myself to Steve, express yourself. Learn how to express yourself, and it was a catharsis for me.
I'm
In
just
different
wondering
ways.
if the act of writing these plays is one way to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it is definitely a way of release. It's a way of release, and then it even resonates differently, Paul, when you see the words come to life, and then through someone else, and then it hits totally
That's
different.
interesting. So if someone else saying the line that you wrote, something you're grappling with, what happens when you see that on stage? Is it pride? Is it validation? Is it feeling not alone?
It's all of the above, right? And then it also still makes brings tears to your eye because it takes you back. But then I think the more people, the more men, black men in particular, can learn or can get comfortable enough to talk about their struggles and their pains and the things that they hold. I think we would be stronger and really more, you know, more better, if I could use that together. You know,
Maybe this is part of the process.
it is.
It's kind
We
of
have to be
sounds like it
there.
was with this play. So the play was first
Yeah.
staged where in New Haven, Long Wharf, and it was sold out.
Yeah, Long Wharf was.
What was it like
opening-
to have a sellout
Man, that
play
was
at Long Wharf?
So Long Wharf was always a dream of mine, right?
Tell me about that.
Like so, I would when I moved to New Haven, I would go to the plays. I would sit in the theater at Long Wharf, and
Do you remember any play in particular
Oh,
that kind of
man.
blew your mind early on?
so many.
Did you go to Anna Devere Smith there?
What was Crumbs from the Table of Joy? I don't know who wrote it. I just remember it. Oh my gosh, there were so many. I can't even remember all the titles, but I have all the playbills, so I
Oh, yeah?
collect the playbills.
You keep
So
playbills at home. You
I
never throw
do.
them out.
I do. I have like a stack of playbills.
And
That's
do you
gorgeous.
have the playbill from Death by a Thousand Cuts?
I do. I do. I give you one. But yeah, I would sit in the audience at Long Wharf and I would watch the play, but also say I could do it here. I can do a play here. And then at the time they had stage 2, and I remember.
I like the plays better there. I remember A
It's-
New War. There was one that I'll never forget called A New War. There's a satire on how they create a war in Fox News to like get some
I didn't see
right
that.
wing
No.
government in power and just be mad at people who don't like war.
Yeah, I mean, Long Wharf has produced some really good, powerful plays, but I didn't want to do stage 2 as a community.
You wanted
writer.
stage 1.
I felt
You
like,
wanted
and
the
they
big
weren't
stuff,
opening at the
please.
time. They weren't opening stage 1 to the community like that.
You had to be
You know.
Sam Waterston in his career.
And but through time, and I think especially Jacob Padron. He's been just a visionary.
Well, that's what it took, right?
It took-
Until you have someone coming in who was community-minded person rather than
Community-minded, right.
someone who's kissing up the big shots all the time
to the
about his
conventional
name.
way. Yeah, right. And here it is. Here we sold out.
And you sold out the theater.
Sold out the theater.
That is awesome.
It
So you
is.
went there that night for open. How many nights was it?
Oh, we did one night.
What was
It
it
wa-
like to get there that night? Like, what did you do beforehand? Did you go for special dinner? Did you wear anything special?
No, just sat quietly. When stuff like that happens, I get quiet. I just kind of go within myself.
Were you a little worried that it might?
I wasn't worried.
Were you
about
in the
that.
crowd or were you backstage?
I always hide in the sound booth. I'm always in the.
So you're in the sound booth.
Yeah, I never want to be out with the crowd. I just.
So you were in the
kinda-
sound booth that night. What were you thinking as it was starting? Were you remembering sitting?
surreal.
Were you thinking about those other times you were there and wishing you could always get the long one?
It was everything. So many emotions, right? Like wow, this is happening. And wow, this is happening here at
Were you
stage
nervous?
1.
What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. That's why I go hide in the sound room. Just like.
Were you alone?
Other than
Oh,
the
the
text,
sound
other than
and
the
they were
text,
busy.
yeah, they were working. Yeah, those were working. So you
So
know,
what happened when the play? Tell me what it was like when the play then went on.
I think at one point I realized I exhaled.
It's happening. It's going fine.
Yeah, I exhaled and they just went with it and then I'm kind of hoping it lands. How did they think? Oh, was this too hard? And, you're being judgmental and then critical. It's like, how's this gonna land? And are they gonna like it? And wow, the applaud that came out afterwards was just incredible. And then that was the launch for us to go to New York City. So that was
Tell
great.
me about that. How'd that happen?
That was wow. That was just there was some people came from New York and who had heard that there
Oh,
was this
really?
play.
Who were
Yeah.
these people?
It was some people from that was on the board. What
Of an off-Broadway theater?
Yeah, off Broadway, up on the Upper West Side, and at the YMCA in New York has a theater called it's a small theater, and up on right matter of fact right down the street from Lincoln Center there's a smaller theater, and that's where we performed there, and they saw it and they're like, yeah, you want to come to New York? And I'm like,
And would you say, nah, I'm kind of busy?
Not
I've been to Long Wharf. What's New York? I got stage one, man.
So yeah, so we ended up, we went there, and that was just so incredible because again, these are dreams, right? These are places, you go to Broadway, go to off Broadway, you hear about it, and it's like, wow, it's me. It's actually here. It's happening, and it's good to know. And
How'd it go in New York?
oh, man, same. It was a sold out. The first show was a sold out show, which was incredible. To be in a city that no one
Did you
knew.
stay overnight in New York?
Oh, we stayed like 2-3 days, I think, there.
Where?
Yeah, they had rooms there
At the Y?
yeah, like
You started your career teaching at the Y, then you're going to New York
no, I
Y,
didn't
bringing the
make that
play.
connection until you just said that. That's crazy.
It's kind of beautiful.
That's crazy, but yeah, big ups to Catherine Colzier, who was the executive director there, and she just believed so much, and at the time that's when we were doing it. It was just a read. We still have stands,
Hmm.
and then so they asked us back the next year, so we came back the next year and we did it. Now they're off book, and so we waffled with, oh, it's powerful just being on stands and let your imagination and run with it because you see it in your head, and then we went off book, and it was equally as powerful.
What does off book mean?
So now they didn't read off the scripts. Now we're acting. Now we're moving on stage. Now we have some smaller
At
props.
the same place.
Yeah, at the same place. So
That's
it's
cool.
still landed strong.
Beautiful.
It's still landed.
We're talking to Steve Driffin, playwright, youth worker, New Haven hero. Has a new play he directed and co-wrote called Be Your Own Hero. It's going to be at the Dixwell Q House the weekend of August 2nd, Saturday, August 2nd. And it's about the life and times going back in time for Dr. Fred F. Smith.
Yeah.
We go back in time because he's the Dixwell community leader who co-started Freddie Fixer in 1962, the parade and community cleanup. But this play goes back in time before that when Dr. Fred Smith goes and meets his young self.
Yeah.
So does this play have like scenery staged or is it a reading?
It's some small scenes, minimalist in nature. But some dancing, some
Oh, yeah?
yeah, we do a little bit of everything in this one.
And how many people are involved?
It's pretty good. It's about 12.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it a company or it's just ad hoc?
Listen, ad hoc.
So did you put it together? Who'd you put it together with?
Just some of the actors I've worked with in the past, and some new people that I've never
Who are
worked
some
with.
of the folks?
Rodney Moore, Tamika Petway. These is like those are my staples.
Uh-huh.
Those two. Worked with who else is on? Just some staff members.
And how
Mercedes
long a
Sherman.
show is it?
The show runs about an hour. It's about
Mm-hmm.
an hour, and with a small intermission. And it just chronicles Fred Smith life, because what I realized, because when I moved here, I didn't even know when I Freddie Fixer, I'm like, well, who's that? And people really never, they're like, community gets together and clean up, and that's all I really knew. So it was good for me talking to Fred. So Fred Smith Jr. and I in Portugal. So every Saturday morning, I'm getting up at like 6:00 in the morning.
What time is it there?
It's like 9-10 o'clock there, right?
At night?
In the morning. It's later. It's like 4 or 5 hours ahead. And but for me on Saturdays, I had to get up that time.
Wow,
just to catch
that's
the morning.
dedication.
And we did that for about a year.
And what'd you do? You talked about his father's life?
Yeah, he just shared, we talked, we laughed, we really got to bond, which was really great. And I got to understand his father, understand the time, and
And how'd the writing process work? Was it outside the conversations? Then you'd look at it.
That was tough.
I can imagine cross country.
It's tough. You know what made it really challenging was writing a play about a true story. So creativity is limited because you can't go too far because then it doesn't stretch. You know, it stretches the truth. And Fred was adamant about things. You know, certain things no, this has to happen, or this my father wouldn't say this, or my you know. So here
Did
I
you
am.
do the first draft? Did you draft the scenes, or how did it work?
Oh my God, we had so many drafts, 40-something drafts.
But I mean, who would start, and then how it?
I would throw stuff out. You know, I would write something and send it to him, and then he'd respond back, and you know, we went back and forth like that. And then you know, he would share the history. He would send me information because he's like a historian also. So he would send me information, and luckily he had done like a lot of family research. So I had some back research to kind of now I had all this information.
What's something interesting you learned about Fred Smith, the father?
Man, Fred Smith. I didn't know. I did not know the struggles he experienced, like not just professionally, personally, and hence the title, right? And he was the first of many things. So it's just not the one. There was a litany of things that he was the first of. I'm like, man, this man was incredible, you know. And he had vision. He was a vision.
What was some of the first? The first city black police commissioner.
Yeah,
he was a housing commissioner.
Housing commissioner. The first on the urban league. So it's like bullets of stuff.
But how did he grow up in New Haven?
And he was not from New Haven.
Okay, like you.
Right. He was actually he New Jersey, we would say. Family came from Virginia into New Jersey, and he just kind of happened to stop in New Haven. Like this time, he was on his way from Hartford, as a matter of fact.
How old was he?
He had to be. It was after college, so he had to be in his 20s.
And had
30s.
he grown up in modest circumstances and went to college, or?
Yeah, pretty much. You know, he wasn't
like what his parents do.
His father his father was worked the railroad, and
that was gateway to the middle class for a lot of black families in the middle of the 20th century.
Yeah, for the most part, until the Great Depression,
right?
And then the Great Depression turned everything around for a lot of people. So he did that, but he ended up going to school. He was in Harlem. He went to school in Harlem, med school, different med schools, like 12 years, as a matter of fact, in different places. And then he came to New Haven, but he was astute enough to know that at the time he felt that Yale had the best minds in medicine, and he wanted to be the best and sharpen his skills. And one thing that sticks out most in particular, there was a critical diagnosis that he made without even seeing the patient. And of course, being the only black man in a white establishment hospital, that was...
He worked at Yale Hospital?
He did.
Was it Grace Hospital then, or was Yale New Haven yet?
It was still, as far as I know, it's still Yale. It was at Yale. So, so he made this diagnosis, and the chief of staff and everybody, you know, they challenged it, but he was correct.
What was it of?
Ectopic pregnancy, something. Okay. Yeah, but he hadn't even seen the person.
How did he know?
He knew. He had, but unfortunately, because of the times, he wasn't able to really touch white patients. Right?
Really? Oh my goodness!
Welcome to America, right?
Yeah.
So,
and when are we talking about? 50s?
We're talking. Actually, no. This is 50s. No, this was. I would want to say 40s, in the 40s.
So Yale would have a black physician, which I didn't know that, but they would only let that person deal with black patients.
And not even a physician. He didn't even get that status. He became some professor emeritus later. So it was just like, you know, just.
So he wasn't, but he was a doctor.
He was a doctor, right? But he had to go through a whole lot to get.
Did he do community medicine too?
He did.
Did he have a doctor's office?
He did.
In Dixville?
Right? Yes, he did, and he saw lots of patients and white patients as well. So it wasn't his first rodeo, but at the hospital on that level, you know, he had to still prove himself, and he was able to, you know, he clearly he had seen that diagnosis before, so I guess he heard it and said,
gotcha.
"No, this is what this is." And of course, like, how do you know? You know, so that was great. That was great about him. But he was about that life, and he loved his family. You know, and there's a lot of things about him that the community just didn't know. I mean, I spoke with some people periodically, and But one woman who was a little older, she said, "I thought it was a myth.
Which part?
I didn't know Freddie Fixer was a person." So
Oh.
I'm still. This made me so glad to do this piece also because
Tell me about that. Why do you want people to know about Freddie Fixer?
This is the Freddie Fixer is was one of the largest black parades in the Northeast, and so what happens with time and history when it gets lost? When people generations go on, the elders, some of the elders know exactly who Fred Smith is. Some are still around who Fred Smith Sr. was their doctor, and so but there's so many generations that we just.
When did he stop? When did he die?
He died in the 70s.
Okay, so it's more than 50 years.
Yeah, he died in the 70s.
So he was sort of the precursor to Dr. Marshall Holly.
Yes.
Was sort of the
Yes.
black physician in
Mhm.
Dixwell, saw black and white patients, deliver all to
I'm
my
sure
kids,
that-
but he was a very respected community leader, and
Yes.
he was sort of the only one in the game there in Dixwell.
Right.
Now we got Hill
right.
Health there, where Marshall Holly.
Yeah,
Hill Health moved to where Marshall Holly was before they went in the Q House. Yeah.
exactly.
I found that very interesting, the same corner.
Yeah, so Fred Smith, man, he was just.
I also wondered, the whole talented 10th idea that, at least in the 20th century, that black professionals, physicians, lawyers, academics, business people, there was all this pressure on them with this idea of the talented 10th who had to give back for the other 90. And it
Yeah.
sounds like a hard thing to wrestle with, that kind of pressure. Like
It's
you
a lot of
made it,
pressure,
only
yeah.
that it sounded like he spent a lot of his time devoted to community work.
He did, but surprisingly enough, that was not his first interest.
What was his first interest?
He was content with being a doctor and being on the
Doing
deacon
something
board,
well.
but it was his wife who challenged him.
Oh, yeah?
So Minnie was his wife, and she was the person who pushed him into the community activism, and from there it caught fire for him, and so that's where we get the whole.
Well, you
Fred
gave me
Smith
the
story.
taste. Now I can't wait to hear the whole show. The whole show is Be Your Own Hero.
Be your own heroes.
Steve Driffin and Fred Smith Jr. put it on. It's coming at the Dixwell Q House Saturday, August 2nd, Sunday, August 3rd. Part of the Q House's 100th anniversary. Life and times of the real Fred Smith,
Yes.
and a story about how to be your own hero. How do people get tickets for this, Steve?
There's a link that is out that people can look. I'm sure it'll be out on social media more probably in the next day or two. But there's definitely a link that's going out. That's Jackie Downey and everybody. They can
We're
get
on
that
it.
information.
We're on it.
Yeah.
I loved hearing about your story too.
Okay, I'll come back.
You're you're a hero too. No, Eric says hi, Steve, with a heart. Steve, thanks for coming in. I always love talking to you.
Thanks a lot, man.
And
Appreciate
good luck with the play.
All right, thank you. I look forward to seeing you.
All right, and thanks to Harry Drost for working the controls. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.